Obi-Wan can blow me, sorry, wrong series. The Mandalorian, a show that only exists to sell Baby Yoda merch. Perhaps we could turn him into a football, because whenever he's on screen, I just want to drop kick him in the face. We start with the Mandalorian armorer making a helmet. Somehow she turns that into that by hitting it ever so gently on this. When I say very gently, I mean it. They're going at it with less enthusiasm than a 20-year-old in the just chatting section of Twitch. You expect blacksmiths to be big, muscly people that can put a lot of effort in? That was more like Perrin out of the Wheel of Time TV series. Really not convincing me of the strength of this metal when it is bent by a light breeze. Either way, somehow it works, and the mess turns into that. Look, all I'm saying is press X to doubt. Because when this is the post shot, the making of it gets even stranger. Because look, we hammer it, and it's bent. More bent. Now it's flat again. I didn't cut that. And there's a lot of these problems in the show. I don't know whether I'll pick them up on the rewatch, but I did the first time round. It's like flat, curved, curved, flat. I'm just not sure that such a magical piece of metal will ever turn into that. I mean, what happens if it flattens itself out again when you're wearing it? That'd be embarrassing. But this is all part of a ceremony. I don't know if she made them all stand outside for the last 2 days while she was making the helmet, but it looks like she finished it and immediately brought it out to them. So it's like she puts the helmet on the kid and her gloves are still blue. Oh, sorry, wet paint. But the kid swears on his ancestors, I will never remove this helmet. And so we never see baby Kylo Ren's face again.
This is the way. This is the way.
Wish it had been in the movies. I would have loved Kylo Ren to keep his helmet on. And yes, I know it's not Kylo Ren, but I mean, come on, it could have been. But just as she's about to give him his first bath, and honestly, I thought giving someone deodorant for a Christmas present was enough of a hint, but this is taking it a bit far. They get visited by a water creature. Now, if you watch the kid, the monster appears. And she grabs him, turns around, and throws him so that he falls on the floor. He's still falling. Sorry, but if you yeet me and this monster has time to scream in the air before I've fallen over, how far did I go? It's like that meme where the drunk guy is staggering around for like 30 meters before he eventually falls over because he can't get his balance back. But now we get a huge crocodile versus Mandalorian fight, and we find out the Mandalorian's not particularly bright. They keep shooting blasters at it, which seem to do absolutely nothing. And he's trying to eat them all because he needs more zinc in his diet or something. The kids all run away to the cave, and rather than fly in the air above him so he can't reach them or retreat further back so he has to come more out the water and expose himself, everyone just decides instead to stand where they are and instead go into the water where he is next to him. I don't know, because they've heard flanking is effective and don't understand why. So eventually some of them decide, oh yeah, I've got a jetpack, I can go out of his range. To the sky! But only after that guy specifically tells them to, because they don't have minds of their own. And also, all of this is done in the volume, and it looks awful. I'm not even about CGI the monster as such, I don't really care about that in TV shows. I mean, none of them look as if they're on the background. All of them look as if they're against a wall and the creature is projected onto the wall, because that's what it is. If we just went back to green screens, it would look way better than this. Now, the people in the air aren't just going to shoot him. Instead, they've got a plan. We're going to land on him, plant incredibly tiny explosive devices on him before we blow him up. Honestly, I would have just lobbed a few grenades into his mouth. It's probably going to be a lot softer in there, because they detonate and it does absolutely nothing to him, except get one of them hit by his tail. Probably worth pointing out at this bit, his jetpack is still on, so he's going to go flying into that rock and then just off into the distance forever. Well, would have done, but as you saw there, for some reason his jetpack doesn't work, even though it's clearly on in the screen. But just when you think the Mandalorians couldn't get any more stupid, it gets worse. Because they start firing grappling hooks onto him, including the size difference. This would be the equivalent of a 4-month-old baby trying to grappling hook me. And I mean, 4 months in the womb. It's not going to be very effective. You've just tied yourself to the monster. And what are you even trying to do? Keep it there? What's the worst thing it could do? Piss off down the river? Isn't that what you want? So they all attach themselves to the massive creature. And I can't hold it. No, you don't say. I was sure you had the power to control that thing. And so obviously, he just swings about and pulls them all over. What were you expecting to happen? And it does death roll, which is very predictable as well. I don't even know why you were trying to keep it there in the first place. It wasn't trying to leave, it was attacking you. You should have been the ones to leave. But this goes on for quite a while, and it's just more of the same because it's a crocodile. What else do you expect it to do? We do get this scene where the armorer runs at him, and she's got like a pair of dual axes. She's like, oh, is this going to be some kind of Legolas thing where she climbs up on his back and starts attacking it? No. Run straight towards the creature. And just when you think she's going to climb up on it and start hacking away, like, what on earth is going to happen here? Completely ignores the creature and runs straight alongside it. Well, that was anticlimactic, but I suppose that's the only thing you could do when you were supposed to be fighting a wall with a projection on it. That's the only reason you get this cut. We had to throw water over your screen so we could hide the fact that she was running across the same section of screen again. But this continues for some time. Until a ship flies in to save the day. He comes back round, and this guy actually has lasers which seem to do some damage to something. It's the Mandalorian in his new ship. With my favourite football, Mando has a conversation with the armourer and she's left her forge on, which seems like an incredible waste of gas. There's also this weird scene where he walks in. We got like baby Yoda walking right next to him. It doesn't often show his walking speed, but it is very slow. I wouldn't let him walk anywhere. In season 2, Mando was like, I've survived by moving around very fast. And yet now he's stuck walking around at the speed of paint drying. Well, don't worry, that clip's only meant to sell Star Wars merch in the first place anyway. And the amount of stuff solely designed to sell Baby Yoda merch in this episode is astronomical. They just want the women at home to go, ah. But she starts complaining that he's removed his helmet.
You are no longer Mandalorian.
Seems like a bit of an issue considering that's the name of the show. What are you going to call it now? The metal face guy that wanders around a bit? The babysitter. Metal Doubtfire. But lots of this seems like a recap for new viewers. Like, she tells him he's removed his helmet. Like he wouldn't know. He tells her, but the Mandalorians will forgive me if I go to the mines, which she knows. Yet neither of them think this conversation is strange, just repeating back obvious truths to each other. And it is an incredibly strange conversation. It's like, you'll forgive me if I go to the mines. The mines have been destroyed. Yeah, but what if they haven't been? Well, in that case, you could go to them and be forgiven. I found this rock which proves that they still exist. Well, in that case, you could go to them and be forgiven. I'm going to go to them and be forgiven. This scene had all the creative genius of an MMO fetch quest. And of course, we have Baby Yoda struggling onto a chair. The more they put him on screen, the more I'm convinced he's the only profitable thing about this show. You should have put him in The Last of Us. We could have had a scene where Yoda gets off with a clone of himself or something. His name's Grogu! Yeah, but I can't tell, you know. All Yodas look the same to me.
Relic only proves Mandalore's entire surface has been crystallized.
Did you really need proof of that? All I'm saying is if I was an incredibly traditional group of Mandalorians and heard my home planet had been destroyed, I'd probably send someone to go and look. You know, fly over there, give it a bit of a scan. Even if it's dangerous, it seems like it'd be worth doing. Better than getting confirmation off a couple of Jawas. See what I mean? There's no reason for that Baby Yoda clip to exist there, except to try and distract them from the script. I mean, at least Game of Thrones decided to set this stuff in a house of ill repute. I have to put up with this one expression robot that can't act. And there's Baby Yoda. So he gets confirmation, if I go to the mines, will you forgive me? And she says this. I mean, it's an impressive piece of acting. There's a lot of that in this episode, just big long pauses of no one saying anything, but oh, let's look at the little Baby Yoda for some merch. So Mando decides to leave, and as he walks out at Baby Yoda's pace, we probably took about 10 minutes to get to the entrance. Next up, they're flying through hyperspace. There's no reason for the scene, but don't worry, we've got some Baby Yoda for you, that'll be fun. Mando's asleep, Yoda's up top, and he's like, oh, look at the flashing lights, oh, the flashing lights. Isn't it pretty? But Yoda's really happy. There's like creatures living in hyperspace swimming alongside them. And maybe this is mentioned in the expanded universe stuff, but this is the first time I can remember these being mentioned. Why just no other pilots see them and it's just him? Because there's loads of them traveling alongside them. You'd think somebody would see it at some point. But Yoda decides, I'm fed up being in my little bubble. Somehow pops up there, no idea. Since when has a co-pilot cockpit been linked to the main one? What have you got, like a die-hard air vent to travel down? Baby Yoda's like, travel through hyperspace, have a few laughs, said it'd be fun. Now I'm fighting stormtroopers. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Also, yes, this only exists to show you what it would be like to hug your own Baby Yoda doll. Merch! Seriously, just have a kid of your own, it'll last longer. What happens next is more Baby Yoda bait. In fact, I feel like the next 10 minutes is really. But in particular, Returning to the City is filmed from his point of view. I suppose even the first scene with the Forger was filmed from his point of view as well. Why he keeps cutting to him on the table, it's a very useful excuse to keep looking at him, even though he never says anything, never does anything, and is easily the most deletable character out of the entire show. This whole walk is just picture of a city, picture of his face, baby noises. I mean, this was a streaming service show, but if it was on TV, the ads in the middle would just be about freezing your eggs. So we get a picture of a city, a picture of Baby Yoda's face. City, his face. More potential merch in a tree. Merch. Tree merch. Merch. You occasionally get a shot of Mando. Don't worry though, we soon went back to the merch. Finally though, we get a picture of something actually relevant to the plot with the droid from the original series. The leader comes out with a cloak so long he needs robots following him behind in order to make sure it doesn't drag on the ground. And those droids are fine on the way down, but how do they get back up the stairs? That's what I want to know. It's a droid with one wheel on it. What's it gonna do? Jump?
Magistrate Karga.
That's High Magistrate Karga to you.
Say that to me, I'd be exclusively referring to you as a 4-letter word. Now I think of them, there's several you can choose. Take your pick.
Come.
I know you're old friends, but that was a bit fast. You've only just met him. At least buy him a drink first. Not that he could do anything with it, with his helmet on.
Let's catch up on old times.
So they walk back, and I'm still wondering how the cloak droids are going to get up the stairs when they're just on one wheel.
Citizens have been so instrumental in making this all work. And look at this.
Alright, you're just going to cut to the next scene and not show us. What a coincidence. Did you not think that through? I thought it's alright, no one in the audience is going to be that petty. They'll be too enamored by Baby Yoda to think about anything else. Oh look, we can get him to spin around in a chair. That'll keep him from wondering what on earth was going on with my cloak droids.
We are an official trade spur of the Hydean Way.
Yeah, that's basically all the plot you're going to get out of this scene for a while. They talk about how the city's now successful and Bando, you can get your own land here and live off the fat of it. Given what we've seen with Roald Dahl recently, I don't know how living off the fat of the land got past the sensitivity readers, but apparently it did in this scene.
You and the little one, you can settle down, you can hang up your blaster, live off the fat of the land.
That is a disgusting thing to say. I am so offended. It's live off the morbidly brave of the land. Thank you very much. So Baby Yoda just keeps using the Force to spin around in his chair.
I appreciate the offer, but I have some matters to look after.
Probably a piece of merch.
Here with the same little critter.
The likelihood of that being true is going up by the second.
It's complicated.
People always say that when it's not complicated. I was meant to bring this baby to the Jedi, but then he didn't want to be with the Jedi, he wanted to be with me. How complicated is that? Pretending that The Mandalorian is complicated is like pretending Disney makes good television. No one is gonna believe it.
I completed my quest. He returned to me.
It's interesting language considering most of this show does feel like an MMORPG fetch quest.
I removed my helmet, and now I'm an apostate.
Look, I know how he invited you into the office,
Come.
but I never expected you to start talking about your prostate.
Which is all the more reason for you to stay here with us.
I mean, at least he seems open to the idea.
Where you're from, maybe an apostate.
Much! I feel like in the writer's room, they spent 20% of the time writing the script and 80% of the time trying to work out what they could get Baby Yoda to do. But a droid walks in to warn them that there's pirates outside. Now, when they said pirates, obviously pirates have a stereotype. I never expected the stereotype to be of the Caribbean. No, seriously, Pirates of the Caribbean. They all look like bad cosplays of Davy Jones, especially this dude. But for some reason, this guy keeps trying to go into a pub, which used to be a pub, but is now a school, which is why I can't go inside. This goes on for far too long of him just demanding a drink to go into this building. He says, I want a drink in here. He keeps getting told no, repeatedly, while the Mandalorian watches.
Come.
Seems like he just gives that invite to everybody. What is it? The horns that do it for you?
Join me for a drink back at my office.
Careful, you'd be making Mando jealous with talk like that.
We drink here.
That is a school now.
I say it's still a bar.
This is literally the most pathetic reason for a fight I think you could have come up with, but you know, this is Disney, they never disappoint. I want to drink here. Well, it's a school. I say it's a bar. You don't come across as a tough guy, you come across as incredibly thick. But he keeps trying the magistrate's patience, trying to see how far he'll push him, because presumably if he gives in, they'll just keep taking more from him. So he refuses to back down, until we get a good old Mexican standoff.
Sounds like you went soft.
Don't worry about it, mate. Happens to a lot of guys. I mean, he did invite you back to the office. Maybe you would have found it easier there.
You think so?
Okay, you can't say those two lines are going to move towards your waist without this seeming like an entirely different form of Star Wars. Yeah, this is the kind of Star Wars where you can only sell the DVDs in stores which have their windows covered up.
Come.
Sounds like you went soft.
You think so?
I'll tell you, there's been a stronger narrative plotline in those few clips than there has been in the rest of the episode combined. We get a good old Mexican standoff until they both draw and he shoots the gun out of the pirate's hand and the entire group get ordered to leave the city. The issue is he commands his men to start attacking instead and so Mando takes care of business. Honestly, if this is the quality of pirate, I don't know how you survive this long. So they allow him to run off so he can tell the other pirates, you don't want to come here because it's defended. Sure, that's not going to come back to bite you in any way, shape or form. That never happens.
Sure you want to let him go?
I mean, he might be, but are you? Because you're the one who's going to pay the price in a minute.
You'll let it be known that Navarro is respectable now, and not to be trifled with.
Yeah, but what about Mando? He's the one who's got to fly off on his own. But it turns out he's in trouble. He desperately needs a sheriff, or a marshal as he calls them.
I need a marshal.
What about Marshal Dune?
Well, they fired her because she was speaking too much sense on Twitter. It's incredibly dangerous to have someone within their ranks who is willing to tell the truth. What happens if they accidentally find out where the bodies are buried? We can't have that.
After she brought in Moff Gideon, Canadian. She was recruited by Special Forces.
And that's all we're going to say on the matter, although at least they didn't sort of humiliate her. That would have been even worse. Because it could have been something like, oh yeah, well, she was walking along, slipped on a banana peel and broke her neck. It was a horrible disaster. But Mando refuses.
I can't serve as your marshal. I have something pressing to attend to.
Apologies. I didn't know you were here on business.
Didn't you? I mean, did we have an entire scene in your office where at no point he actually told you what he was going to do? Do I need to watch that scene again?
I appreciate the offer, but I have some matters to look after.
So he did tell you he was here on business then. I'm sorry, I can't take your land. I have something to do. Will you be my marshal? I can't. I've got something to do. Oh, sorry. I didn't know that you had something to do, despite the fact you've told me twice. These scenes are right next to each other. How did you not remember yourself in the script? But Mando wants to save the droid. I need to go to my homeworld. It's poisoned, and I need something as backup. That's the only droid I trust to do it. You see, you can't have him. He exploded, can't you remember? The damage is crazy. This isn't actually him. It's just a statue made out of some of the parts that we managed to scavenge. Luckily, quite a lot of him seems to have been left, actually. So Mando asks if he can have a shot at repairing him. Now, I can't remember if Mando is meant to be some kind of mechanical genius, but surely there's actually engineers in the city that could do this job better than you. Surely, as this droid has been so celebrated, he's actually been put up as a statue in the entire town. The engineers will have already tried to have brought him back. Because if you're telling me you celebrate this guy enough to make a statue of him, but not enough to actually try and revive him, then that's horrific. You can't be telling me that, can you? So Mando works on him and does an astonishing piece of engineering, which absolutely nobody else will have thought of trying.
There. He's hooked up to power.
Nobody else could have thought of that. Go on, let me try and fix the droid. What are you gonna do? Well, I'm gonna add a battery pack. If this works, they never tried to revive him at all. They just stuck him outside as a piece of furniture. It'd be like stuffing your gran and putting her in the front room. So he hotwires him, literally. Literally. And just when they think it's failed, we get movement. And merch. So no engineer at all even tried to revive him after he went out and died fighting for people. We were lucky to find any of him, and after we found him, we were so tired we just couldn't be bothered, so decided to leave him there. The issue is, as he sits up, he sees little Grogu, recognizes him.
Subparagraph 16, asset to be terminated. Based economy.
And at this point represents the audience. I mean, if I was in a coma, came round and saw that thing, I'd do the same. I mean, he doesn't have any legs, so drop kicking's out the window, but he can give it a good go. Even chases Yoda off the table. Mando starts shooting him, which for some reason he keeps missing, even though it's a robot with no legs on the floor. I mean, look, he's on the floor, dragging himself with one arm towards him, and Mando misses. This is the next frame. Look how far he missed. That's like 2 whole robots away. But as he ever so slowly drags himself one-armed across the floor, just so he can grab onto Mando's shins. I mean, this guy is incredibly dangerous. Mando does come up with an incredibly entertaining game. Yeet the Yoda! It's just unfortunate the guy on the other end caught him, because it would have been way funny if he splattered on the floor. Also, again, perfect advertisement to have your own baby Yoda doll. Now, the droid immediately changes target. We get the servant droid standing behind the statue of the boss's face in the boss's office, which is the height of egotistical, but let's face it, probably standard at Disney. They're just like, well, obviously, he's an executive. He's gonna have that in there. Who do you think he is? A common peasant?
Mando, shoot it!
I'm so glad you told the Mandalorian to fire. He never would have thought of that on his own.
Shoot it!
Such good advice, he told him twice. And the droid pushes over the statue and it crushes his face.
Now that's using your head.
Alright, Sean Connery, chill out. This isn't James Bond. But it turns out because he didn't have power, his CMOS battery had run out, and he'd rebooted his BIOS to its default settings. I mean, I didn't know the droids were running on Windows 7, but now I do. Everything makes sense. And his default programming was to kill Yoda, which is why I went after him. This is Disney Star Wars, though, and so Crush Droid is just another opportunity for merch. Merch! He says, we've attracted the best droidsmiths in the Outer Rim. And just coincidentally, they happen to be really small, like Baby Yoda. They'll definitely be able to fix him, but don't worry, while we're having this conversation, let's focus on the merch.
I don't think I can handle him with all his limbs if things go scud.
Do you mean the robot or Baby Yoda? Because yeah, I don't know about a banana for scale, but that dude is incredibly small. Because Disney has mastered the key to selling toys. Just make everything tiny. It's cheaper to make and more in demand. The smaller the better. We can even transfer feelings, so if Baby Yoda likes the new merch, then everybody's gonna like it. This is gonna be amazing. It's definitely part of the plot. So they spent ages trying to fix this droid. I mean, seriously, it's like a scene out of Men in Black when they're trying to make coffee. The only thing I want out of this is another Gremlins movie, to be honest. But there's a really long, drawn-out translation scene between them and Mando, which is just a really bad joke that he keeps translating to Mando, even though Mando can understand what they're saying. I'm not joking, the scene goes on for about 3 minutes with that as the entire premise. And they were really proud of this shot because they think it's funny if Mando is in a really small building. If they're living on a planet full of normal-sized humanoids, they'd be in a normal-sized building because their customers would need a place to sit. This would never happen. How did Mando even get in the building? You're not telling me he climbed through there, are you? He'd have to take off more than his helmet to fit through that thing, because we saw the size of that door right here. Even if this is theirs as well, that's going to be a tight squeeze. But they say they can't fix it because his memory banks are broken. And they keep saying, no, we can't fix it, we can't fix it. It's entirely impossible to fix it. Oh, by the way, if you get a replacement part, we'll be able to fix it. Why didn't you start with that? Instead of going, no, we can't fix it, it's broken, go, yes, we can fix it, we just need this part. Those are two entirely different propositions.
What if I find you the part?
Okay, now then no problem.
But now we've got the fetch quest for the next stage of the MMO, we get to the true part of this scene, its reason for being.
If you can get him the part, he says he can fix it.
No, Grogu.
Yep, much!
Not a pet.
Oh, Baby Yoda likes his new little doll, and you like Baby Yoda, don't you? Doesn't that mean that you want Baby Yoda hugging a new little doll? I mean, at this point, it's just verging on the predatory. Although it's Disney, I'm not sure why I'm surprised. So Mando rescues him from Grogu, who just keeps going after him. Dude, at this point, he said no. That's assault of the kind I can't even say on here.
Bad baby. Oh, bad.
Sorry about that. He's young.
Firstly, I'm not sure that's an excuse. Secondly, he's not that young, is he? Yeah, just look, people say that species may live to about 900 years old, but here, he's 50. There's no way you're gonna get that to fly in court, mate. And it would explain why he's losing his hair.
No, Grogu.
That guy does not take no for an answer. No wonder you didn't want to be the sheriff. The first person you'd have to arrest is Grogu. But they go off on their fetch quest to collect 9 different rat's tails. Sorry, it's a replacement part for a robot. And bear in mind, no one could possibly know where he's going to get that part from, and space is a big place. He could have flown off at any angle from this planet.
Being a Mandalorian's not just learning about how to fight. You also have to know how to navigate the galaxy.
Yeah, he starts teaching Baby Yoda how to fly a ship, even though Yoda can barely walk properly. But they get a proximity warning as the pirates have suddenly sprung out of an asteroid field next to them. In other words, they were there first, hiding in the asteroid field, waiting for him to travel past. This isn't Earth, mate. It's not like you're waiting on the London Ring Road where you know he's going to go past it. But apparently, no, they knew the exact place he was going to travel past the moment he left that planet and laid a trap waiting for him.
Avast, Mandalorian. You can't just sneak away.
Yeah, but he should have been able to. You shouldn't have been able to beat him here. Well, there's a chase through the asteroid field. Mando has obviously been watching Boba Fett, which would make sense considering it was basically his series. As he does a completely unnecessary 360-degree spin. But even more ships move in to cut him off from in front. And we get some typical asteroid fights, everyone's skimming the surface trying to avoid them. But somehow Mando manages to avoid them. You see, they've all decided to fly behind him in triangular formation and miss him for ages. These pirates are the spaceship version of stormtroopers. That's the only way you can explain their total inability to aim. But they lose him when he goes on one side of an asteroid and they go on the other one. Why they didn't chase him, I don't know. And he starts using guerrilla warfare to blow them up one at a time. Fly out of one place, blow one up, appear out of somewhere else, blow them up. It feels like they're trying to do a spaceship version of Rambo. It's especially bad for them when they remain in formation and he ends up behind them. Now, they've spent the last half an hour missing him with every single shot they've ever fired, and he hasn't missed any so far until this section, so at least we saw him miss a bit. Turns out anyone can be a stormtrooper in this show. But he eventually does hit one of them, who smash into this asteroid mining platform and presumably just kill hundreds of innocent people. But you know, this is Disney, who cares about that? But the final guy's got a plan. I know I can't beat him in a fight, so I'm gonna take him back to my boss. He makes him chase around the asteroid until he runs into the capital ship. There's quite a few turrets. Surely they can't all miss. That'd be really stupid, especially as it's the single reason that you brought him back here in the first place. So they all target him, and Mando makes it seem really serious.
Think Ferric. They have a target lock on us.
They've got a target lock on us, presumably. That means they're definitely not going to miss. Because if they were just aiming on their own, obviously they'd aim like stormtroopers, but a target lock. Now we're actually going to hit them. But don't worry, because we go back to the Pirates of the Caribbean. Yeah, the captain's covered in seaweed. in space. Please, can someone just mention Captain Jack Sparrow? I'll have a full house. But he's incredibly annoyed. You just destroyed 4 of my fighters. Yeah, that you sent to kill me, so I'm not sure why you're that annoyed about it. Surely you should be annoyed at them for failing rather than me for proving how crap they were.
Surrender your ship and I'll spare your life.
But don't worry, Mando has a cunning plan. A plan so cunning, Baldric would be proud.
Kid, never trust a pirate.
I mean, that's good advice, but I'm still waiting on the plan. Oh yeah, he's gonna push this button over here. That's the most ridiculous part of the entire episode for me. I'm there in front of a capital ship. You've already told me that you've got a target lock, which presumably means you're not going to miss. And so my plan is to fly straight at the capital ship and think it's gonna miss. Shoot him. The moment he does that, shoot him. Fire. Why are we not hitting him? Where did that go? Did you see one of those? Because let's have a look where these lasers go, shall we? Well, the first set go over here, which is going to end up far over the left-hand top side of the map somewhere, in an entirely different direction than his. The next set, miles over to the right over here, completely missed him. There's another one just fired at the bottom. Where's that going to go? Another set, about 5 miles above his head. That's nice. Oh, here comes a laser. That looks like it's going to fly off to the bottom right somewhere off the screen. I've had to move it so you can see just how far away this laser went. In entirely a different direction than the ship is even flying. One's just got fired over the top left. I'm sorry, but I don't know what you thought you were doing with that one, mate. He's not flying in that direction either. I don't mind if you miss, but can you at least aim at the ship? Oh, look, a second one's been fired. Looks like it's flying in an entirely different direction again. Yep, there it goes. The ship's all the way over here, and the laser's like 100 meters to the left. Remember, this is with a target lock. Imagine how bad it would have been if they'd had to fire themselves. But he flies off, and for some reason, this ship can't chase him until we arrive at the location he wants to go to. A Mandalorian castle, complete with blue-painted robots. And look who it is, it's the wannabe king of the Mandalorians. And of course, we've got to see Baby Yoda looking impressed, just in case you want to buy his special limited edition floating ship edition. If they ever create a Mandalorian game, they're 100% going to do the Harry Potter Legacy version of a floating Baby Yoda.
I'm here to join you.
Looks like everybody's being forward in this series.
There's nothing left to join.
Well, at least she's more honest than most. But it turns out she's not been having a good time after the second series when she couldn't get the Darksaber. Mando still has it so he could unite all the people and go back to their homeworld, but because she didn't, when she returned without it, all of her troops faded away, and they're now mercenaries roaming the galaxy.
Then you lead them. Wave that thing around, and they'll do whatever you say.
It's like the Star Wars version of Leonardo DiCaprio. But then we get a really strange piece of dialogue that doesn't make sense.
So you gave up your designs to retake Mandalore?
Your cult gave up on Mandalore long before the Purge.
And you could kind of see a position on that sentence, as long as by Mandalore you strictly mean the planet and not the people. Because as far as I can tell from this series, I'm not a deep lore guy, so I'm going purely off what the series has told me. They left because they wanted to uphold old Mandalorian traditions, and Mandalore was no longer sticking to those traditions on the planet itself. So they didn't give up on Mandalorians, they just wanted to uphold the traditions and the culture of Mandalorians themselves, whereas Mandalore wanted to destroy them and change.
Where were you then? The children of the Watch and all the factions that came before fractured and shattered our people.
That's not true either. Mandalore fractured the people. She's kind of giving the explanation that Mandalore was this really forward-looking, progressive place that wanted to leave behind its ancient traditions and culture, advance into the future with new beliefs. And other people went, no thanks, I don't like what you're doing there, so, you can continue to do that over there, and we'll leave and uphold these traditions and the culture of the Mandalorian people and our heritage over here. And she's like, I can't believe you left. And I don't like you because you upheld your traditions and survived when we brought about disaster to our civilization. I mean, I don't see how it's Mando's fault in this scenario. They wanted to uphold ancient traditions, you didn't, and your planet got glassed. It seems like you went down the wrong path. I don't think you can blame them for making better decisions than you did. But he ignores a, to be honest, completely insane rant. And just goes, yeah, I'm going home anyway.
You are a fool.
I mean, you're calling him a fool, but you got your entire planet destroyed, so I think we know who's worse.
There's nothing magic about the mines of Mandalore.
It's not meant to be magic, it's meant to be a tradition.
They supplied Beskar ore to our ancestors, and the rest is superstition.
Tradition, not superstition. They said he would be forgiven if he bathed in the waters. They didn't say the waters would magically do something to him. He's not going to turn into Superman and start shooting lasers out of his eyes. Then, at least you might have some kind of point. But she tells him where the mines are and says, I'm not going to go with you. And so he leaves, leaving her back there on her own. So this entire scene was pointless. It was literally just the next NPC in the fetch quest. It was like, okay, I need to know the location for here. Yes, don't worry, I'll mark it on your map for you. This entire show is as shallow as a duck's backside. Oh, and there's like 4 minutes 28 of credits or something in a 38-minute show. If over 10% of your runtime is credits, maybe you're getting a bit egotistical about it. And by the rest of it, I'm even including the recap of previous seasons. It gets worse if you take that out. But overall, it's more Mandalorian. If you like the first 2 seasons, I think you'll like this as well. It was a very drawn-out episode. There were large sections of nothing happening with huge pauses or just walking somewhere. But then again, more happened in this than the first few episodes that I saw of Andor. It felt more like Star Wars than the first few episodes of Andor. So it's not the worst Disney Star Wars, and that's something. The plot was incredibly shallow and slow. There were lots of scenes in it which I think were solely designed for merch and literally no other reason. And the action scenes themselves, I think they were decent if you don't analyze them. So if you go through the first time, maybe you're reading something on another browser window or you're eating, so not paying full attention on what you're watching, then they were decent enough the first time through. I still think that first crocodile scene looked awful and dragged on far too long with far too little changing within the actual scene to keep it interesting for that long. But I do like shows that open with a hook, and if you had to pick something from the episode, that was as good as anything else you could have chosen for it. The droid scene in the office was decent enough the first time through, as long as, like I say, you don't analyze it on the way past and realize this is just a droid with one arm dragging itself across the floor. It does take on a very different atmosphere, and it destroys the scene if you begin to think about it. So out of everything, the best bit was probably the fighter scene at the end, and we've seen that scene in so many other pieces of entertainment, either in a building or from a forest of people just getting picked off one at a time. I'm not sure it works that well when it's a ship and an asteroid belt as it does in the other scenarios, but if you like sci-fi space battles, that's one of them. But honestly, I could see people liking this. To me, it's like a show that exists, but it's not offensive. There was nothing really about the show that felt like it was offensive or attacking or trying to push anything. Until the end with the Mandalorians, that definitely was. And so I'm sure some people watch this show and this was amazing, it was genius, it's the best Star Wars, how can you not like this thing? And I'm like, well, because I've seen other TV shows. And if you're a massive fan of Star Wars, I can understand why you're excited to just get more Star Wars. But I was always more of a Star Trek guy than Star Wars in the first place, so for me, it's just another sci-fi show, and I've seen better sci-fi shows. And I think the best summary possible is, it's more Mandalorian. You know what you're gonna get, and you got it. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video, subscribe, more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.